All right, Miles, let's talk LSU Tigers here a little bit. This is a team fresh off an SEC championship game appearance. I think they surprised a lot of people the first year under Kelly. It looks like they're heading in the right direction, Miles. And we have a report out of LSU that the future may even be brighter than a lot of people even thought of.
Yeah, Nick, I think they have an extremely bright future, and there's a ton of bright spots on this team, but you always hear about the bright spots. Everyone always talks about the big time transfers, the big time recruits, the 5 stars, but there might be some guys that kind of slipped in there under the radar that nobody knows about. So that's why LSU fans, we want you to tell us in the comments below, who is your favorite under the radar kind of player on the team this year? Who's a guy you're waiting to see break out and make it big time this year? Let us know in the comments below. But Nick, what do you got going on in LSU?
Yeah, so speaking of guys who are the opposite of under the radar, it has to be former true freshman All-American Harold Perkins. He made a massive name for himself the second half of last season, and there are reports out of ESPN highlighting he could be so much better going forward. So this is according to Alex Scarborough here. I'm going to read from the report here, Mize. He said, it took Harold Perkins Jr. a while to show up, but that's okay because once he did, he flashed Will Anderson Jr. type of ability at outside linebacker for LSU, practically living in the backfield of opposing offenses. During his final 7 games, the true freshman racked up 11 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. If he can create that kind of chaos throughout his season, he could be the best defensive player in college football this year. Scarborough, writing for ESPN, actually named Harold Perkins as his guy to watch on the defensive side of the ball throughout the entire country in 2023, Mize. And when I saw Harold Perkins, I saw him in a couple games. I forget which ones specifically, but the thing that blew me away was his sheer raw athletic ability. I mean, I haven't seen a guy like this play. I mean, he brought up Will Anderson. I don't think that's a fair comparison. He reminded me, Mize, of a bigger, stronger, more physical Eric Berry from Tennessee. Obviously, Berry was a safety. He was a different kind of dynamic, but that kind of just raw athletic playmaking ability where he's just better than everybody else on the field. And his production, Mize, the second half of the season, as Scarborough highlighted, was absolutely insane. And it looks to me like LSU found another elite level linebacker playmaker on defensive side of the ball in Perkins here.
Yeah, I think Perkins was just made for LSU. Being a young boy, Nick, he had to leave the state due to Hurricane Katrina, moved all the way down to Houston, and eventually comes back home to the LSU Tigers. And he seems to be a really dynamic playmaker, as you say. But this defense is primed and ready to go because Perkins now has all of the assets all around the ball to help him come and thrive, Nick. This offseason through transfers, they added 8 players. 7 of those guys were on defense through the transfer portal, 3 corners, 3 D linemen, and then 1 edge rusher, Nick. And then through the recruiting of the players coming in through high school, they have another big-time recruit. They had a 5-star in Deshaun Womack coming in. There's tons of defensive players coming in through this year's recruiting class as well. So I just think this defense is ready. And it's not even a reload. It's just an absolute blistering of talent coming into this team. And with a guy like Perkins at the front, as you said, he's going to be the breakout. He's going to be a leader of this defense. He's kind of going to be like potentially the star of this LSU defense. You think of guys like Patrick Queen, stuff like that, LSU linebackers who really, really perform at a high level. I think Perkins is set to make that breakout role. And just seeing all the guys around him to help support him, I think this article is spot on, because I don't see how he could possibly fail with all of this talent around him.
Oh, and the thing about a guy like Perkins here is that he's sort of the modern era defender, right? You're looking in the NFL right now, a guy like Micah Parsons for Dallas, who's an elite level pass rusher, and he weighs 240 pounds, right? So he was a stand-up linebacker in college. Perkins is in that same mold where he's not the traditional, 260, 250, 270 outside edge player, but he's not quite as big and thick as a traditional middle linebacker, but he's much better than a DB and all that. But he's so freaking athletic, and he can make plays sideline to sideline, but he can also be a disruptive force behind the line of scrimmage too. He can beat offensive linemen in one-on-one pass rush situations. He is just a new era defender in SEC and frankly college football. And having a guy like him who you could line up literally anywhere on the field and he can make a destructive play for the defense, whether it's in the run game, the pass rush game, breaking up a screen, dropping into coverage if need be. This guy can literally do it all. And everything right now for LSU seems to be heading into a headlong matchup for Alabama. Everyone knows Alabama had another top flight recruiting class. They reloaded their coordinators. I think we're seeing the rebirth of the famous Alabama LSU rivalries from about 10, 15 years ago, where Nick Saban and Les Miles had some massive clashes. They're some of the greatest defensive games we've seen in probably college football history. I think we're headed right to that again, Mize. And I couldn't be more excited for those kind of matchups, because as long as LSU has a guy like Perkins running around, they can go toe-to-toe with the folks of programs like Alabama.